Aitakan. Before you guys can comment on how I murdered Thai brutally for the second time, let me assure you that Dare You to Death contains even more brutal murder scenes. So, if you guys are ready, let's start the review by asking you guys a few questions. So, have you guys ever been scarred by this little show called Pretty Little Liars that started out as an engaging story but eventually fell off because its storyline was riddled with inconsistencies and plot holes? Or did you guys get scarred by the pathetic portrayal of mental health in 13 Reasons Why, and you had the misfortune of watching the second season of Cruel Summer after its very good first season? Or do you guys find yourself craving to watch more movies like Malang or Mom or Red? Then you all have the perfect antidote called Dare You to Death. Now, Dare You to Death is a Thai drama that is on Netflix, thankfully, because that means you don't have to work hard and save 500 bucks every month to blow it on your iShigi or WikiRouten subscription just to watch Asian dramas legally. So, Dare You to Death revolves around this girl named Pufai, who is a part of this toxic Alison De Laurentiis friend group in her college, and her murder is investigated by Inspector Carmen, who is fresh off of USA. And Inspector Carmen enlists the help of his subordinate Jade to find out who the killer is. This story takes an interesting turn when Jade finds out that his brother Jay is also a part of this because he is a suspect in the murder of Pufai, because he is a part of this toxic Alison De Laurentiis friend group, which makes the friend group from Only Friends look like a very healthy one. So I love how Dare You to Death manages to balance romance and mystery perfectly. And I am saying this after watching Hit 3 because in Hit 3, you feel like the mystery sidelines to give more space for the romance that contributes nothing to the story at all. Here, you see how the mystery affects the romance and vice versa. And I also love how Jung and Dang's chemistry kind of matured. Like, this is exactly what the show needs. You don't have time for a full-fledged romance between Jade and Carmen because that would only sideline the mystery, which is what we were here for in the first place. And if you guys are worried about gore, then you shouldn't, because Dare You to Death manages to kill its victims in a gruesome way, but it doesn't bother to show you bodies, so you guys are absolutely safe on that front. And Dare You to Death has something for everybody, like romance, check. Insane chemistry between the leads, also check. Good performances, check. Good action sequences with no choppy edits, double check. And it also has elements of revenge in it along with murder mystery. So Dare You to Death gets an 8 out of 10 bonus points for the opening OST. Now, it becomes easy for you to get an idea about who the killer is when you've binged Dare You to Death in one sitting and if you've watched the movie Malang. But if you've watched Dare You to Death on a weekly basis, then it becomes a bit difficult for you to predict who the killer is because you might forget the minuscule details of the episode that premiered the previous week. And whether or not you could predict who the murderer was, I could not predict Ao and Boom's appearance in the series. I only watched Dare You to Death because Netflix threw it to me and I instantly got hooked to it. So watching my favorite side couple aiding the main couple in their missions and in the investigations was an absolute delight, and I hope they get more main roles together. So based on all of this, Dare You to Death is absolutely worth your time. It has an engaging plot and it will manage to keep your eyes glued to the screen. You won't even know when the time passed by watching this show. And if you guys decided to watch this show, then you may be free to leave because I will be having a spoiler-filled discussion right now. So this is your last chance to leave, okay? So if you're still here, spoilers start in 3, 2, 1. Now, the killer in Dare You to Death is Pufai herself. That's right, Dare You to Death mirrors Malang in this aspect. Who aids Pufai in all these murders? Her doctor, who kind of has a crush on her. and they get into a relationship. Now, bonus points to the show for not exploring this further because it's very, very creepy for a doctor to be dating their patients, especially when their patient is just a teenager. And I am kind of fine with it because Pretty Little Liars kind of glorified grooming, so this is a step up. So I also liked how the killers approached their victims. It mirrored Pretty Little Liars in this aspect because in Pretty Little Liars, A approaches her victims by stalking them and emotionally manipulating them, but A doesn't kill her victims. She just likes to see her victims wreathe in chaos. But in Dare You to Death, the killer gives the victims two letters labeled truth or dare, making the victim choose. And if the victim chooses truth, then the victim must confess the crime. And if the victim chose dare, then they must choose who to kill. And the letter provides instructions on how to kill the chosen person. Now, story gets even more interesting when Carmen and Jade receive a letter from the killer itself, but this is more of a threat because the letter says that if you guys manage to find the killer, then you guys get to live. But if you guys fail to solve this case, then you guys have to die. And this puts a strain on Jade and Carmen's relationship. So I love how they resolve this misunderstanding in just one or two episodes and how healthy their relationship is because they actually communicate and they are just like, yeah, we'll just address the issue of the inspector dating his subordinate in like one line, and since the audience already enjoys our chemistry, we can just get back to being intimate. I think that my personal bias is Jung and Dunk because Dunk Natachai has got manwa daddy looks, and I love how Jung Arjun manages to have issues with his on-screen sibling no matter what show he is in and no matter what character he plays. But I think the bond between him and Om is the best one so far. I could totally buy Jay and Jade as lovable brothers, and I got attached to them instantly. They are just too adorable together. So, Dare You to Death also integrates a revenge plot because you see what Pufai has been through, and while you know what the others have done to Pufai, it doesn't become completely justified because this story is told from the inspector's point of view. But you have an episode dedicated to Pufai's point of view and how much she actually suffered with all these people committing crimes on her and how angry she is right now. So she just manages to take matters into her own hands after her psychiatrist, soon to be her boyfriend, told her that, hey, this is not the way, and then proceeds to give her a full-fledged plan on faking her death that night and forging the autopsy reports. Turns out that Pufai just managed to inject potassium chloride to temporarily stop her heart, and the doctor kind of revives her ASAP, and then they go on a murder spree, which again is not a very therapist-like advice to give. And I'm even surprised how this guy got a psychiatry degree. But the only plot hole in Dare You to Death was how the doctor got both the degrees and how he is practicing both of them. But since I love the cast and the effort that was put into this show, I am willing to let it go. And Dare You to Death also follows the typical cop drama cliche where a cop can only solve the case when he is not on duty or when he is suspended by his superiors for a short amount of time, which is what happens to Inspector Carmen. So I honestly thought that since this story is told from the point of view of the inspectors are going to solve the case and get to the killers and be like, okay, fine, this is not the way how to do it, Pufai. You need to let these people go and you need to let the justice system do its work. But I did not think that Pufai would actually push Inspector Carmen away only to try to kill Champ herself. And Champ, being the more important actor here, manages to kill Pufai and is just like, okay, now I am permanently disabled and I am going to get a life sentence. So I love Champ in this role because the last time I saw him was in Never Let Me Go, which made me sleep like 3 times in one episode. So I just hope he gets better roles in the future. And I also love how they manage to kill the victims. Like, you have one guy who gets bludgeoned by a car. What a merciless way to die when you are a car mechanic, nonetheless. And this other girl, Belle, who is the literal Alison De Laurentiis of the group, dies when she's taking a shower in the bathtub, and she just gets drowned with acid because she threw acid on a girl's face. So karma instantly. And then you have Shireen and Champ, who are forced to fight each other to death. And you also have Jay forcing to choose between who to kill, whether it is Shireen or whether it is Champ. And Jay is kind of like Clay Jensen, who doesn't like to mess with all of this, and he is just an accomplice to all of this. So I feel like Dare You to Death mirrors 13 Reasons Why because of what Pufai went through. And I am also glad that Pufai did not commit suicide because of all of this, regardless of how I find the therapist's advice to be very weird. I will let it slide. And I also like how the show concludes with a proposal between the leads, and how it taught me a very important lesson that the box doesn't matter, what is inside the box actually matters. And I also was squealing into my pillow despite this show being a murder mystery anytime the leads got romantic. So I guess there is that. To be honest, I thought Dare You to Death was going to end on a cliffhanger because you feel Kamen and Jade are like miles behind the killers. And I thought they were never ever going to solve the case, at least in this season. But once they find out that the doctor is behind all of this, then stuff starts kicking into high gear and they start acting at lightning speed, which I also appreciate in this show. And I love how they just trace the entire ketamine drug subplot. I thought it was not going to get connected and was not going to lead to anything, and it was just a dead end. But it turns out that it was really important because I never thought that the forensic doctor was going to be helping this Pufai in murdering people because he gets very less screen time. It was just a blink and a miss. And I almost managed to theorize that maybe these people have a secret friend and they committed the wrongdoings towards her. Like, I originally did not suspect Pufai to be the killer when I was binging this weekly. So I love how this show concludes and ties everything up in a neat little bow, with our inspectors getting a deserved break along with Ow and Boom, and making me feel FOMO for not being able to hang out with them on this beach and very lovely resort. So I had a blast binging this show, and if you've made it till here, thank you so much. I cannot appreciate you enough. Kapunakap. I'll see you in the next one.